In the heart of the Crystal Kingdom, a land famed for its shimmering castles and radiant people, lived Princess Aurelia. But you wouldn't know it if you saw her. Aurelia was born with a peculiar condition. She was completely invisible. From the day of her birth, no one in the kingdom had ever laid eyes on their princess. Her laughter echoed in the halls, her footsteps padded softly on the marble floors, but to the world, she was just a whisper of air, a phantom in the palace. The king and queen, though they loved her dearly, were heartbroken. They consulted every wise mage and ancient oracle in the land, but none could break the spell. So, they tried to hide her. For Aurelia, life was a series of closed doors and shadowed corridors. She learned about the world through books, her fingers tracing maps of lands she could never visit. She listened to the bustling sounds of the capital from her balcony, imagining the faces of the people below, forever unseen. Her only companion was a small, white cat named Nimbus, whose keen senses could always find her. Nimbus would curl up on her invisible lap, his purring a warm, tangible comfort in her intangible world. Aurelia would whisper her dreams to him, dreams of walking through the market, of dancing at a royal ball, of simply being seen. One day, as Aurelia explored a forgotten wing of the palace, her hand brushed against a cold stone wall. A hidden door creaked open, revealing a spiral staircase descending into darkness. Guided by a strange curiosity, she and Nimbus ventured down. The air grew thick with a scent of old parchment and forgotten magic. At the bottom, she found a single dusty book resting on a stone pedestal. The book was titled The Tome of True Sight. As her invisible fingers opened the cover, the pages glowed with a faint ethereal light. It spoke of an ancient enchantment, the one that bound her, and a single perilous way to break it, by retrieving the sunstone from the heart of the Shadowfen, a treacherous swamp where light itself was said to die. The book warned that the journey was not for the faint of heart. The Shadowfen was guarded by illusions and creatures that fed on fear. But for Aurelia, who had lived her entire life as an illusion, fear was an old friend. This was her chance, not just to be seen, but to finally see the world for herself. For the first time, a spark of determination ignited within her. She was no longer just a ghost in a castle. She was a princess on a quest. That night, she packed a small, invisible satchel with essentials, a rope, some dried fruit, and a flask of water. With Nimbus tucked safely inside her cloak, she slipped out of the palace under the cover of darkness. The guards at the gate felt only a slight breeze as she passed, a silent farewell to the only home she had ever known. The journey to the Shadowfen was long and arduous. She crossed roaring rivers, the water parting around her unseen form. She climbed rugged mountains, her invisible hands finding purchase on the cold, hard rock. The world was far grander and more terrifying than her books had ever described. She learned to rely on her other senses, the smell of rain on the wind, the feel of the earth beneath her feet, the sounds of the forest at night. As she neared the Shadowfen, the air grew heavy and the vibrant greens of the forest gave way to gnarled grey trees. A perpetual twilight hung over the swamp, and strange whispers seemed to slither from the shadows. The illusions began almost immediately. She saw visions of her parents weeping, blaming her for their sorrow. She heard voices mocking her, calling her a freak, a nothing. But Aurelia held on to the one truth she knew. She was real. Her invisibility didn't make her any less so. Deeper in the swamp, she encountered the Murkrath's shadowy creatures that fed on despair. They swarmed around her, their chilling touch trying to sap her will, but they couldn't see her. Her invisibility, once her curse, was now her greatest weapon. She moved through them like a ghost, her resolve hardening with every step. Nimbus, sensing her fear, would press against her, his small, warm body a constant reminder of what was real. Finally, she reached the heart of the Shadowfen, in the center of a clearing. Floating just above a pool of dark, still water was the Sunstone. It pulsed with a warm, golden light, a beacon of hope in the suffocating darkness. But guarding it was the swamp's final master, a massive serpentine beast known as the Gloom Scales, with a color of midnight, and its eyes burned with cold, ancient malice. The Gloomfang couldn't see her, but it could sense her presence, the disturbance in the stagnant air. It lunged, its massive jaws snapping shut where it thought she stood. Aurelia dodged, her heart pounding. She was no warrior. How could she possibly defeat such a monster? Then she remembered a passage from the Tome of True Sight. The greatest darkness fears the smallest light. She noticed the sunstone's glow would intensify whenever she was near it, as if it was drawn to her spirit. An idea, bold and desperate, formed in her mind. She ran, not away from the beast, but directly towards it, circling around to its side. The Gloomfang, confused by her movements, thrashed wildly. Aurelia scrambled up a moss-covered rock, positioning herself directly above the monster. Taking a deep breath, she leaped. For a terrifying moment, she was flying through the air, unseen, unheard. She landed squarely on the Gloomfang's massive head. The beast roared in confusion, shaking its head violently to throw her off. But she held on, her small, invisible form clinging to its slick scales. Then, she did the one thing the darkness could not comprehend. She began to sing. It wasn't a song of battle or power, but a simple lullaby her mother used to hum outside her door. It was a song of love, of hope, of a girl who dreamed of seeing the sun. As she sang, the sunstone pulsed brighter and brighter. A beam of pure golden light shot from the stone and struck the Gloomfang. The beast shrieked, not in pain, but as if the light was dissolving the very shadows it was made of. It began to fade, its form becoming transparent, until it vanished completely, leaving only a ripple in the dark water. Exhausted but triumphant, Aurelia approached the sunstone. As her invisible hand reached out to touch it, the stone flared with an almost blinding light. Warmth flooded through her, a feeling she had never known. Stay. And then, for the first time in her life, she saw her own hand. It was pale and slender, but it was real. She looked down at her reflection in the water. A young woman with hair the color of spun gold and eyes as green as the forest stared back. She was beautiful. She was visible. When Princess Aurelia returned to the Crystal Kingdom, the entire city fell silent. The people stared in awe at the radiant princess walking through the gates, a small white cat perched on her shoulder. The king and queen wept with joy, finally able to embrace the daughter they had only ever felt. Aurelia was no longer the invisible princess. She had faced the darkness, both in the swamp and within herself, and had emerged into the light. Her story became a legend, a reminder that true strength isn't about being seen by others, but about seeing the courage and worth within yourself. She ruled with a wisdom and compassion born from a life spent listening, observing, and understanding. She proved to everyone that even those who feel unseen have the power to change the world. Thank you so much for watching. If you enjoyed this story, don't forget to like, subscribe, and hit that notification bell so you don't miss our next adventure. See you next time.